So all month we've been looking at the story of Job, and finally we get to the Sunday where something good is happening, and we're a light crowd. Go figure. Well, let us hear this good word from the final chapter of Job, chapter 42, verses 1 through 6 and 10 through 17. Job said in reply to the Lord, "I know that you can do everything, that nothing you propose is impossible for you. Who is this who obscures counsel without knowledge? Indeed, I spoke without understanding of things beyond me, which I do not know. Hear now, and I will speak. I will ask, and you will inform me. I had heard you with my ears, but now I see you with my eyes. Therefore I recant, and I relent, being but dust and ashes." The Lord restored Job's fortunes when he prayed on behalf of his friends, and the Lord gave Job twice what he had before. All his brothers and sisters and all his former friends came to him and had a meal with him in his house. They consoled and comforted him for all the misfortune that the Lord had brought upon him. Each gave him one kezatah, and each one gold ring. Thus the Lord blessed the latter years of Job's life more than the former. He had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, 1,000 she-donkeys. And he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. The first he named Jemimah, the second Keziah, and the third Keren-happuch. Nowhere in the land were women as beautiful as Job's daughters to be found. Their father gave them estates together with their brothers. Afterward, Job lived 140 years to see 4 generations of sons and grandsons. So Job died old and contented. The grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of the Lord lives forever. This is the word of the Lord. All thanks be to God. So what do you need from God that would make you content? Content with how you lived your life, content with how your life turned out. Or if you have already reached that point, what have you received from God that has made you content? And I don't mean overly happy or super excited. I don't mean ecstatic. I don't mean feeling like you've lived a life that everyone should envy. Not that you've done everything and owned everything that you've ever wanted or whatever. But content, satisfied, fulfilled, at ease, happy enough with life, with how you lived your life and with how it turned out. You know, my uncle comes to mind when I think about being content. He's been here before. You may have met him. He and my dad were twin brothers. My dad died when I was at a very young age, and my Uncle Jim was there for us at that time. From being physically there at the time that my father died on through the following years. I used to go up and stay with him and the family for weeks at a time. Uncle Jim, Aunt Carolyn. I only called her Aunt Carolyn. She said, "I'm not an aunt, I'm your aunt." And Will and JD and Geraldine, my cousins, they are just so wonderful to have, and I'm so very thankful for every one of them. But about Uncle Jim, he was an airline pilot. Not too long ago, he reached retirement age and had things all lined up. But that was right around the time of the economic recession. Sure enough, he lost his pension completely. So he went from having things all lined up for retirement to finally be able to spend some well-deserved time with family and enjoy that time in his life, kick back and relax a little bit, ending up having to find a new line of work just to carry on working the days away. Now, fortunately, another family member works at the FAA and was able to help him find a position there. And as you can imagine, it was pretty devastating to lose his pension like that. But what a relief to be granted an opportunity closely related to what he knew so well, flying professionally. So now he does things like helps with crash investigations and rides on a lot of flights to oversee pilots and the aircraft to make sure everything's up to par. And I say up to par as kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, because he should be able to pick up playing golf or something in his retirement, while instead he has to work. Nevertheless, whenever I see him, he seems content. Having accepted the hand he was dealt, thankful for his beautiful family, blessed with a loving, faithful, and very hard-working wife, very proud of their children, one of whom's a military pilot, one's a riverboat captain, shipping cargo, one holds a significant position in a major corporation. They live comfortably, and he's still able to fly on his own as a private airplane pilot. Now he's still got plenty of his life to live. But at this point, I can say that I see that my Uncle Jim is an incredible man who's taken some very tough blows. A man who's journeyed the ups and downs of life. And a man who is carrying on and is content with life, with how things are turning out and with how he's been living his life. You know, in a way, I think of this as being kind of like the state of being that Job reached at the end of his life. As you know, Job started out very, very well off. He was a righteous man. He was quite successful at life. 7 sons, 3 daughters, 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 donkeys, very many servants, and he was known as the greatest of all the people of the East. Job's children, however, were then killed. His servants were killed. Everything he owned was destroyed. He and his wife were left with nothing. And to top it off, Job was then covered with these sores from head to toe. Throughout 40 chapters, Job was having it out with God and also having his friends in his ear about what he must have done to cause all this, to bring it on himself. And when he finally hears back from God, he doesn't quite get what he hoped for. No answers as to why it all happened. No total vindication and restoration as he knew he deserved. Nothing like that. Just an agitated response about Job needing to learn his place. That he didn't know everything about how God worked like he thought he did. That there's a lot more going on in the universe than what happened to him. Although on a good note, he also found that God was, in fact, still with him. So here we are in the last chapter, seeing how this all ends up. He said to God, "I heard you, but now I have seen you with my eyes." That's interesting to me because most translations say, "I heard of you with my ears." But that's not what the Jewish translation goes with. It says, "I heard you," which I think makes more sense. Job hadn't only heard of God, but Job had a personal relationship with God already. It just wasn't as close as he previously thought it was, which he had now come to learn. He was now closer with God than ever before. Now, after all of this, he'd come to know God on a much deeper level. And he had a serious revelation about the nature of God. He had come to understand how little he really understood. So he continues, "Indeed, I spoke without understanding of things beyond me. I recant and relent, being but dust and ashes." That phrase right there is another translation issue. Most translations say he repents. But that's not right. Job doesn't repent here. Job never did anything wrong. Sure, he got on God's nerves a little, but he never cursed God. He never turned away from God. He never sinned in any other way in all this process. Job basically said, "All right, I'm done. It is what it is. It's beyond me. I'll shut up now." Job then prayed for his friends, because they said all the wrong things when they were trying to help him. And when Job did that, when he prayed for them, the Lord restored his fortunes. God gave him twice what he had before, twice the sheep, twice the camels, twice the oxen, twice the donkeys. He had family and friends that showed up. They consoled him. They gave him gifts. They ate a meal together. It was time for healing. Kind of like that Pee Wee League in Indianapolis that was stolen from last week. They received donations in response from sports equipment establishments from all over the place, receiving tons of stuff so that they could get their programming all back together. Lots of stuff. All that was lost was able to be replaced, and was done so twofold. But not everything could be replaced. Not everything could be written off as though it never happened. Job lost his sons and daughters. 7 sons and 3 daughters he lost. That wasn't stuff that could be replaced. The symbolic details really highlight this. Job didn't get twice the amount of kids in the end. He didn't get 14 sons and 6 daughters, but he got 7 more sons and 3 more daughters. Those daughters being the most beautiful in the land. He was able to give all these children grand estates to enjoy. Job was able to provide lavishly for his family. But those first sons and daughters, they just couldn't be replaced. They were gone forever. The grief of losing them would be there for the rest of his life. Job's fortunes were restored, and then some. But Job had to carry on with some very, very deep scars. Now, in that gospel passage from earlier, Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, a blind beggar, was sitting by the roadside and hollering out for Jesus, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus was moved by this man's faith, said to him, "Go, your faith has made you well." Immediately Bartimaeus regained his sight and put that sight to good use by following Jesus. Bartimaeus was overjoyed by Jesus healing him and restoring him to wholeness. His problem was fixed. He had no more reason to grieve. What he was lacking was given to him. Can't help but wonder about this story being placed together with this restoration of Job in the lectionary, because there's kind of a disconnect for me. Job didn't get everything that he was lacking. The death of his first children, that was never fixed. At the end of his life, Job had truly lived the ups and downs. He didn't die overflowing with joy. He wasn't ecstatic about life. But he also wasn't bitter and resentful. He lived a very full life. He lived many years. He was thankful for what he had, and he had come to terms with what he lost. Job was content. My prayer is that each of us can reach that kind of contentment in our lives. And not all on our own either. I like how it says in the book, it says contented. I'm not going by a strict definition here, but I kind of take that as realizing that we haven't done it all on our own, but contented by what God has provided, by how God has helped us carry on through the dark times. May we be open to the Lord in all the mysterious ways that God works, striving for righteousness at every moment and always seeking to grow. May we carry on through the valleys and celebrate at the mountaintops. May each of your hearts be blessed with peace. Amen.